this is the second portion of my blanket, my square on square. As you can see, I chose to do some stripes, and what my stripes are 6 rows of pink, 12 of blue, and when I got to the center I did 10 rows of pink, then back to 12 blue, 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, and then I did 1 row of my 1x1 rib, because that is the edge of the blanket, and then I did 12 more rows, or was it 20 more rows to do my edging. Okay, and that's where you got me. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just doing the edging. Now you can do it all solid colors, but I'm just using what yarn I have on hand, and I did not have enough of the blue to complete it, and had a little bit of the pink, so I'm using the pink. Now you can see that second stitch came off, but that's going to be a rib. What I did, I'm using my block, which is a 1 by 1.5 inch block. I have pushed the needles forward that I'm going to be converting into ribs. But I didn't push it off the needle, they're just resting on the latch. So when I get up there, I can just give it a little bit of a pull and it'll release it from the needle. So I'm just doing my mock rib. Now my next square will be the same as when I did this one, except it's going to be a solid blue. So when I get to this one, I just give it a little push or pull, you know. So the third square will be done the same method as I did this one, meaning I cast off this last row and then I remove the work from the machine, keeping that last stitch, hang the last stitch onto this needle here, and then rehang the needles. Now if you want this a real square, these are more rectangles. If you did 90 stitches, you would want to do 180 rows, because you're picking up every other row when I'm casting on. So this is more going to be like a more of a rectangle than a square. So what would you would do is cast on your 90. Actually, you could just leave it at the 90. Do your border on the outside. Actually, that's one thing. If I do this again, which I will be doing again, I'll be doing the border last. So I would cast on 90 stitches, knit 180 rows, cast off, hang that last stitch on the first stitch, rehang 90 stitches, knit 90 rows, cast off, rehang the first stitch, then you'll knit 90 rows, cast on 90 stitches, cast on the 90, which is rehang the 90, and then I would knit 180 rows. Now the fourth section, which is, I'll be back with that one, but I'm going to verbally, what I'll do is I will on the end of the third section, I'll cast off like we have been, rehang 90 stitches like we have been, but this is where it starts getting different. My carriage will be on my right hand side, so I will knit a row and I'll rehang a stitch from the first square. If you number the squares 1 through 4, this is the second square I'm working on, and the one I'm talking about is the fourth square. So you'll knit a row, hang a stitch from square 1, And then I'll knit 2 rows, hang a stitch from square 1 onto square 4. Now you're going to be dealing with live stitches, so every row you will have to hang a stitch. Let me rephrase. No, let me think about that one. Still have 90 stitches, so every other row you'll hang a stitch. Now you're messing with live stitches on that one, because remember we did an open cast on. Don't worry, we'll film that when I get it. This is still a work in progress, so. Be interested to see what it looks like. No, I've not made one of these before, just in my head. I have done a log cabin, which there's a video of that one. I call it log cabin, sorta. Because a log cabin is individual squares, and I just kept going around and around. I did one square. But there's just so many things you could do with the bond. Now, if there's anything you'd like in particular, just shoot me an email and I'll see what I can do. Not promising, but I'll see if I can do it. If I can create the pattern for it. Now, if it's a pattern that belongs to someone else, I would want to get their permission to do it. If it's a pattern, if it's just a stitch, there's no copyright on stitches. But patterns there is. If you haven't seen my video on tools, this particular tool, I was watching someone's video and I'm gonna have to find it. I can't find it. I don't know which one it was. But what she took was a clothespin, took the metal hinge part out and laid it down with the flat side up, and then she cut 2 slots the length of your needle, from the machine, cut the nub off the needle, and then she cut the slot so that the needle would fit inside between the 2. I'm not worrying about that one because that's going to be turned into a rib. As long as you don't put pressure on it, it's no biggie. And if you don't want to spend the time to find it, which I don't really, because you have a tendency to split it, just go down a little bit below and rehang them. That's all you have to do.